I'd like to thank Ken for having us out today. My name's Travis Albrecht. I farm northeast of here at Schuler, and the technology you guys are going to see here today I actually found on Facebook from some big farms that are in Australia. And we were running lots of chem fellow up till about 4 years ago, so we have weed resistant issues on our farm, and we just kept using more and more Roundup and other chemicals added to our Roundup to kill our weeds at burn off and post harvest. So I seen this system, did some research on it, looked pretty cool, so I figured I'd chance it and buy a system. So I had the very first system in North America. Last spring it ran on our farm, so it's been over our farm three passes now, and I sold 4 systems besides mine now, 2 in southeastern Alberta here and 2 in southwestern Saskatchewan. And guys are really liking the systems. This spring cost savings alone on their burn off ranged anywhere from 30 to 60% depending on quarters and how weedy your fields are. So we brought a demo unit here today, and the way the system works is there's 4 sensors that emit red LED light, and when red LED light hits chlorophyll in the plant, changes to infrared, which gives us a wavelength, and that wavelength signal is sent to the solenoid on your sprayer and tells which nozzle to open depending on where the light beam picked up the weed in the field. So this system will detect 2 centimeter square weeds at 15 miles an hour. Biggest thing about this system is you got to spray fairly low. 24-25 inch height for your sprayer is ideal for the system to be accurate. If you end up going to 30 inch, it's not like you're going to miss a weed, but it will spray longer ahead and behind the weed because the light beam is spread out. So there's a bunch of settings in the computer. We can run spraying 50 mils ahead and behind the weed all the way to 200 mils ahead and behind the weed depending on wind speeds and drift and how accurate you guys want to be. We can set the sensitivity, the light sensitivity. When we have full sun, it's not as accurate. It actually works the best in the dark because there's the sun emits a little bit of infrared light. So on full sun days, you got to run your sensitivity really high and you'll get the odd misfire, but you're still way better off than total blanket spraying. And the computer also has options in it. We can spray, on our farm, we run a liter an acre of Roundup in our tank with a full rate of aim. And when we spray our pulse ground, we'll set it at 33%. So we're getting 0.33 of a liter of Roundup on everything. And then when it detects a weed 2 centimeters squared or bigger, that weed gets a full liter. So we're still saving, when there's no weeds, 67% of our chemical that way. Last fall, on all of our acres, because it was dry, we saved 87% of chemical on our fall burn-off. So I will get Rinder. You might as well fire up the tractor and we'll make some passes so everybody can see how the system works. And then I'll answer questions and we'll run a bias mode after. We'll run full spot spray. I think we pulled enough weeds out of here. But the system is very, very sensitive, so even some weeds that we pulled that we even left one leaf behind, the system will trigger and fire on that because it's made for detecting pretty much everything in your fields. System also has built-in PWM technology that runs at 50 hertz, which is way faster than any competitor out there. We run a boom circulation setup when we put them on your sprayers, so there's continuous flow all the time to your booms and back to the tank. So when you have one nozzle open or 180, there's constant pressure and droplet size on every nozzle. So you can see on the green it'll be full open. And I don't know, because the light is really, really hard to see. We dyed the water, but I'm not really sure if a guy can really see when it was coming and turning off and on. But it's just the way the light is. I don't know if it works better from looking at either end. Because the guy can physically touch the plants, we got nothing in there but water, right? So if you are questioning if it's hitting the weed, you're like, by all means, go and grab it.
It was actually pretty visible going this way.
It was pretty good that way? Yeah. From my angle, it wasn't I could tell because I know what to look for, but I couldn't tell a whole bunch. But we are putting a really heavy rate on the weeds, so they should feel wet right after. It is pretty hot today though too, so when it's cooler, they stay wetter longer. So Reinder is my service tech. He travels around and does all the tech work. He's factory trained from Holland because this technology is all from Holland. It's just a small tech company over there that builds these systems. We fly them over to Canada. We haul your sprayer to our place, and we basically rebuild your sprayer from the ground up, from the pump back, to put these systems on. 2 systems we did were on John Deere sprayers, and we got 2 on Case sprayers right now. We did a brand new R4045 for a guy in Kindersley, and we mounted a second wet line so he can either switch from his John Deere wet line to our wet line. We mounted 3-way valves just below his sectional valves, so he can just turn the 3-way valves, and in 2 minutes he's running a weed it line. And he wanted 2 lines because he has a chem injection system on his sprayer and wanted to be able to switch from chem injection to weed it on his chem fellow. And he's also running his chem injection in conjunction with the weed it to save more money now. So another thing, this system self-calibrates itself. So when it hits the green, the nozzles are staying open. So anytime you have fields that, there's spots like this that are really, really green, and then it'll go for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it'll go to turning back off and on again. But everything is all self-calibrating, and it'll self-calibrate itself 40 times a second. So the LED light sensors sample the ground 40,000 times a second, and our nozzles will open and close 40 times a second. That's how fast they are. So he's gonna run bias, or that was bias? Okay, let me know. So is it on bias now or full spot? Not yet? Well, I'm not sure. What do you got going? He understands English, kinda. So yeah, he's still running full spot spray, and then we'll make a pass on the bias mode just so you guys can see where you'll see 30% rate on the bare ground, and you'll get a harder spray where you have weeds. And to change to bias mode is just as simple as putting it in the computer and hitting the one button and you're on bias mode. So now he'll run 33% bias. This is the way we spray our pulse ground. So basically, I don't know if anybody has even heard of these systems or seen them. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. So you can see there was a light spray kind of across everything, and then when it detected the weeds, it was getting the full rate. And you can also set your full rate. There's different settings for how many gallons an acre you want your full rate to be and how many gallons an acre you want your bias to be. Basically, your options are unlimited on bias from 0 to 50%. And right now, Tom Wolf is working with us to try and figure out some more nozzle selections to give us bigger range of coverage and running a little bit different spacing. So we'll see what his research comes up with, and I'll be the first guy running the new nozzles for next spring. But we went from last fall, basically these are about 9.2 gallon an acre nozzles in this sprayer. So on my 800 gallon tank, I should have been empty at 87 acres. We were spraying, our worst tank was 340 acres last fall, and our best tank was 1100 on 80 acres of chemical. And one of the colonies this spring that we set up, they sprayed 18,000 acres and run 30% bias mode and saved $34,000 on burn-off alone on 18,000 acres. And that wasn't running any spot spray, that was still bias. This fall they're going to do bias work or full spot spray with me, and we're hoping to get that number to 50, 60,000 or more on savings. So right now, we are the only guys in Canada that are dealers and can install them, and pretty much the only guys in Canada that know anything about these systems right now. But hopefully we can get it kind of taken off and go Canada-wide with all the systems. For right now, it's kind of big acre guys, so this part of the world, it works really well right now, because they are kind of expensive. Although we are working on government funding also through the new Growing Forward program. Solid numbers, not really sure yet, but they're going to sponsor a very big portion of this system because it's technology that is light years ahead of any major manufacturer over here. We'll just get them to run one more time and then I'll answer questions. So he'll pull it up here and then everybody can come in close and have a look at it, look at the sensors, solenoids, all that stuff. So basically our solenoids, I'm not really sure, I've never run case sprayers about the aim command, but we can buy every little piece that are in these solenoids. So when a solenoid goes, it doesn't cost you $100 most of the time. If it's just little O-rings or whatever, we can change them out for about 40 cents. And even if it is the solenoid, ours are around $40 per solenoid, which is, I've been told, quite a bit cheaper than cases solenoids. So everything's preloaded into the monitor. When you want to start with your SP, when you want to run weed it, we just set your pumps on manual at 40 pounds, and then the Ramsey valve that we install controls constant pressure and flow on your booms. We also install separate wheel sensors, wheel speed sensors in each one of your rear wheels, so we have turn compensation also on our systems. It works really well. Like, that was one of my big questions for the Aussies down south, because they're really dry and dusty. The red LED pounds through the dust, no problem. We've sprayed in really, really dusty conditions and never had a problem.
And even with dust on the weeds?
Dust on the weeds, you know, it goes off chlorophyll. Like, it was picking these up and they're fairly dusty, right?
Yep.
And really you're not going to get a whole lot dustier than what that one is, right?
Yes.
We did notice this spring, just because it was such a ramp up in the spring, we were missing the odd weed, and I think it was the plants didn't have enough time to have the chlorophyll. Like, they were green, but the chlorophyll wasn't into the plant, right?
Yes.
But you know, midsummer, right now in fall, it doesn't miss very many weeds at all. And like we've been getting canola like small as this with like Tom Wolf, like tiny. But when canola comes up, it's really dark green, lots of chlorophyll, right? But we were getting stuff way smaller. Thing about these guys, when they say 2 centimeter squared weed at 15 mile an hour, that is way undershot for what the system can do. In South America, they run as high as 25 miles an hour in South America. And it depends on your topography, because with SPs you want to make sure your height control system is kind of top notch, because you want to stick as close as you can to 24-inch height.
And what cost are we talking about on 120?
120 feet is $170,000 plus install, and it depends what you guys want us to do. It's about $30,000 to $50,000 to put them on, because basically we get your sprayer, and it's 3 weeks of hard install for us to put them on.
3 weeks.
Yeah. I kind of undershoot that too. Like, we can probably do it faster, but I try to bring in sprayers because we farm, so we try to bring them in the fall. Right now we're just taking orders. Whoever's in first gets first install, and so on. I'm hoping we can do between 6 to 8 this fall and winter. And like I said, we only did 4. I could have sold more, but we really wanted to make sure the systems worked. Like mine worked, but you just never know with other operators. Like we know how mine was operated, right? And Reinder operated mine in the field too, right? So we wanted to make sure, and you know, Reinder's my service tech. We wanted to make sure we had parts. But I have 2 of everything to build 2 systems in my shop. So parts availability, I make sure nobody's waiting. And we do a really good parts list for the customers that have them.
Your information or business cards?
Yeah, I got pamphlets here in my truck. I'll put them out here after. It has the breakdown of the specifications on the system, stuff like that. So systems all have 1 year total full-blown warranty on them. Doesn't matter really what happens there unless you wrap it around a tree or a post and bring me a sensor that's horseshoed. Probably not going to warranty that one, right? But any defaults, anything like that. And now we're trained to fix all the plugs on the back. We don't have to send it back to Holland unless we figure it's something that was defective right from new. Then I have spare sensors, I just give you new stuff and we put it on for you and you're off and running again. But we'll have some really hard numbers on Chemfellow this year out of Kindersley, Saskatchewan, of how much he's saving. So the guy up there with his Chemfellow now, he sprayed Roundup and then he found that he has a bunch of Roundup resistant kochia. So he went in once the kochia was a little bigger and he smoked it with Liberty and just spot sprayed the resistant kochia with Liberty now, right? And this guy too, because he's running that new R4045 with the chem injection, he seeded a bunch of Roundup Ready canola, and when it was just coming out, he turned his sensitivity down, and then he didn't burn off. So then he picked the weeds out of his canola using this system, and was really, really happy that way with Roundup Ready canola.
Yep.
Could be. This runs at 48 volts, right? So there's a power converter in the back, and we mount a power converter. So we take your 12 volt and we crank it all the way up to 48 volt to run our sensors and our solenoids. Mine's been on 2 years and quite a few hours, probably like 200 hours of on running time, and it hasn't affected my battery or alternator yet, but you don't want to leave it on and have your sensors on for an hour showing it off. You will stone your battery in a hurry. But when you're running, it's fine. It has no problem keeping up and charging.
What's your most problem that you would have had in the field? You won't fold that thing.
In our hills, been hitting the ground, snapping nozzle bodies. That's the biggest problem. We had one faulty sensor this year out of the 4, but like I said, we have spare sensors. We went and plugged a new one in, and away they went. Because it's really easy. It all self-calibrates when you plug it in. We run through it with guys. Every time we sell a system, Reinder goes to your farm for a whole day, helps you run through different scenarios, what you want to do, how you want to run the system, and he's available all the time via phone or text too. But yeah, the biggest problem we've had is busting nozzle bodies in the hills, and not slowing down. But other than that, it's a really, really trouble-free system. So this just has a push-together wet boom. Now on the SPs we mount another stainless boom, and the stainless wet boom that I have on my sprayer, we have the 20 centimeter spacing for weed it, and then I also have it, every second one is 20-inch spacing, so we can run in-crop spraying with the same wet line, and then we just put double nozzle bodies on. And then we also have 15-inch spacing in between for streaming fertilizer, so we don't have to stream through the solenoids, all in one wet line. I wanted them to build a wet line that, because I don't have spare SP sprayers, that we can do everything with one wet line and different nozzle bodies all at the same time. And now we're working with Tom, we're going to figure out turnable, probably 3- and 5-way nozzle bodies that are going to work with these solenoids now. But we want to test them, bench test them all winter with Tom, and I'll run them the first set just to make sure they work. And then there'll be turnables on for next year probably.
Travis, have you seen certain weed species that could potentially be harder to control? Or?
This spring, flicksweed was tough, just because the way the spring was from minus 20 to plus 30, they didn't green up as fast. Fall, we haven't seen any misses, but this spring, flicksweed was tough. But that's why Tom's going to do a lot of testing through the winter just to see the amount of chlorophyll in the plant and find the cutoff, right? And then we can going forward, we can tell guys, you know, if your plants look like this, probably sit 3 or 4 days or run a bias mode, right? Run, you know, 25 or 33% or whatever bias you're comfortable with, right?
It's a system you have to believe in, and then you have to play with it. First you go on.
And we're still figuring out a lot of the options, like I said, with the Roundup Ready canola and running the chem injection pumps, because it's never been done, ever. So it's all brand new. The guys in Australia are running these things. They buy ground following wheel boom sprayers with these systems on. And I didn't want to do that, so mine was the second SP in the world with a system on. And I forget, they had around 50,000 hours on solenoids on bench testing in Holland, and they've been holding up really, really well. The only thing we found with the solenoids is you got to make sure you filter your water. Little pieces of sand will get into the plunger and the O-rings every once in a while, but if you clean the little grain of sand out, and it's not like it won't work with that in, you can see how these are shut off and not dripping. If you see a drip, that's just a little piece of sand in there. But that all has to do with your water source and filtering. And right now, we can only do 120-foot systems just because of the power conversion, up to 48 volts, and then we got to bring all the power back. So they have to engineer a bigger power converter so we can get out to 132 and 140. But naturally, with putting a bigger power conversion system on, your price is going to end up going quite a bit up just because of the power draw of all these sensors coming down all that way. But three of them are 120 feet that are out. Mine's 100, and the other one in southwest Saskatchewan is 100 feet also. It's 170,000 plus install. Install runs 30 to 50, somewhere in there. So you're looking 200 to 230, kind of all in, and that's with us trucking it, like everything all in. And we like to bring it. We've done every system so far in our shop, just because I bring my fabricators in, and basically we find, like, when you fold sprayers in, you find out how tight the clearances are against tanks and cabs, and there's a lot of fab work that goes in. The engineers come over and told us our installs were the best they've seen in the world on sprayers, and I haven't had any complaints of install yet. We try to make everything look as factory as possible. Everything still folds in the same way it did from factory. Just we'll edit wet lines and move some cradles a little bit. However, we can make it look the best. Any other questions?
Well, thanks a lot. Join me in thanking Travis, and I missed your name.
Reiner.
Ryan, the guy that sits on a seat with bolts sticking out of it, man. Get him a pillow.